Welcome to A Moment of Xen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Xen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, cannabis, and entertainment from the millennial mom's perspective. Here's your host, Xen Sams.
Welcome back, beautiful New York tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Xen Sams. Welcome to episode 272. Today, we're taking you everywhere from the farthest concerns of the globe to the frontiers of consciousness, from the future of aesthetic medicine to the worlds of entertainment, entrepreneurship, and personal transformation. First, in the lifestyle edit brought to you by Melia Hotels International, we're joined by Lee Abamonte, global adventure, entrepreneur, TV personality, and one of the most accomplished travelers on the planet. And after visiting every country in the world, Lee shares how social media, over-tourism, remote work, and shifting traveler priorities are changing the way we explore, and why the most meaningful journeys may have less to do with where we go and more to do with how we experience the world. Now, we're headed inside the Taylor Sheridan circle with actor, writer, and filmmaker Rob Kirkland, best known for Yellowstone, mayor of Kingstown, and Criminal Minds, in the Bosque Ranch live speaker series. We're going to explore what it's like to live inside one of the most influential storytelling universes in modern TV, and why audiences continue to connect so deeply with stories rooted in grit, loyalty, family, and that Western legacy. And in the heart of influence, brought to you by DiamondLake Minerals and its subsidiaries, we're featuring my incredible co-contributor, Brian J. Esposito, joined by Elizabeth April. She's a certified remote viewer, author, spiritual teacher, and one of the most recognized voices in the consciousness space today. We're chatting, are we entering a new human era? Remote viewing, consciousness, supernatural curiosity, and the business of belief. And then in the Sculpting the Future series brought to you by Tiger Aesthetics, we're joined by Dr. Umbareen Mahmood, board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon and double Ivy League trained aesthetic specialist. As the GLP-1 medications continue transforming millions of lives, we're going to discuss the growing demand for natural-looking volume restoration, regenerative body contouring, and the future of aesthetic medicine. And in the Going Deep podcast series, host Laniker is joined by Lori Harder, entrepreneur, investor, founder of Gloshi, and host of the globally recognized Earn Your Happy podcast. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this in the Bosque Ranch live speaker series with Rob Kirkland.
A Moment of Xen is brought to you by Tortora Promotions, specializing in white glove digital marketing, social media management, professional videography, and PR services. Based in New York City and partnering with hundreds of businesses nationwide, they deliver proven strategies that bring more customers through the door. If your old marketing methods aren't keeping up, Tortora Promotions can step in to help you stay ahead. Grow your brand and drive real results. Reach out today and follow them on Instagram at Tortora Promotions. Your business deserves it.
Welcome back, beautiful New York tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Xen Sams. Welcome back to the Bosque Ranch live speaker series brought to you by Bosque Ranch. Today, we step inside one of the most powerful storytelling ecosystems in modern television, because when you look at what Taylor Sheridan has built, it's not just a series of shows. It's a cultural force. In fact, Yellowstone alone has drawn over 10 million live viewers at its peak, with the broader Sheridan universe consistently dominating streaming and cable rankings this year alone, proving audiences are craving something far more grounded, more raw, and more real. We are once again heading inside Taylor Sheridan's circle with actor Rob Kirkland, a man who lives inside that world, on screen and off. Rob is an accomplished actor, a writer, and filmmaker, best known for his role as Sheriff Bill Ramsey on Yellowstone and Captain Walter on Mayor of Kingstown, following his journey from Yellowstone to Bosque Ranch. Welcome to the show, superstar.
That's quite an introduction. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Sam.
I'm so excited, and let's chat your early beginnings, okay? So before we get into Yellowstone and Taylor Sheridan's world, I always love to understand the human story behind the resume, because every overnight success usually has years of grit, rejection, and reinvention behind it. So How did you get your start in acting, and what were those early years like before the momentum built?
I started out doing plays, auditioning for plays, and there was a catharsis in it for me. And then people started hiring me to do those plays, and yeah, it was really cool. It was early years were tough, but fun. And yeah, that's kind of was the genesis of introducing me to this craft and this business that I'm still trying to figure out.
The theater, I mean, my I studied at Lee Strasberg and Stella Adler Conservatory,
Oh, right on.
and my love for the theater really, really flourished, in my late teens, early 20s, but it was the catalyst for everything incredible. It really was, because it teaches
Yeah,
you a training unlike any other. You only get one chance at getting theater right, unlike TV,
this is
right?
true. Yeah.
So let's chat about your breakthrough moment. So in entertainment, there's usually a moment where the dream starts feeling less abstract and more real, where the work, the relationships, and the timing really begin to align. What was the turning point in your career where you realized this was becoming real?
This Criminal Mind. I think that episode and the episodes leading up to the introduction of my character, and after that had aired, I was surprised by the kind of the ripple effect that happened in that fandom and also within the industry, and I started to receive more of those career defining opportunities, more roles that brought on more and more responsibility. But yeah, I was surprised by the impact of that character on that show, and how that was that pivotal pivot in my career, where I was like, oh, this I think I could turn this into a career of some sort.
Yet Criminal Minds, I remember watching you on that show, and you're
Oh,
right. There's a cult-like following.
there is.
There's a different fan base for crime shows, and it really, and you're right, it's very addictive, those shows. I watched
Very.
all of them, and it makes a lot of sense, and it also speaks to why your work feels grounded. You didn't just arrive there; you earned your way into it.
Yeah, yeah, it took some, yeah, speaking of that, that's when my mother considered me a real actor when I was on Criminal Minds. She goes, "Now you're," I was like, after all these years, and I'll be like, to your point, all the years before that, but that moment, that was the moment that I was like, she's like, "Oh, I see."
And let's chat about entering Taylor Sheridan's world. So
Yes.
Taylor Sheridan has created something very rare.
Yes.
His shows are not just watched, they're felt. They carry this emotional weight around land and loyalty and masculinity and family and consequence and survival,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
why audiences have stayed so deeply connected, right? At least I have.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
how did
100%.
how did you first connect with Taylor Sheridan's universe, and what was that experience like stepping into it?
I've known Taylor for a number of years, and I had read for Wind River, and I had known Taylor years before that, and I read for Wind River, and he had called me. I got a call from him a few weeks after that, which is very gracious. Him letting me know graciously that he had other plans for that character in Wind River. By the way, if you haven't seen Wind River, it's hands down top 20 greatest films of the 21st century. I mean, it's anyways, but all that being said,
You're
yeah,
right,
so
it
that
is.
it's phenomenal. And when I read that script, I'm like, oh, I gotta get in this. But yeah, so yeah, he had other plans for that character and then other plans for me. He circled back a few years after that, and he had offered me the role of at that time Commander Bill Ramsey on Yellowstone, which grew into Sheriff Ramsey, which we had in some great plans for, but things had changed. But I've been running with him in the Sheridan verse ever since, and it's been a blessing. It really has.
Well, and that's exactly why his world resonates, right? It doesn't feel manufactured. It feels
No.
lived in. It really feels lived in, and Bosque Ranch feels like the real world heartbeat of that storytelling.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Now, now I want to chat on screen versus off screen and your identity. So you have a presence on screen that feels very commanding, right? Especially as Sheriff Bill Ramsey on Yellowstone. And I think with Sheridan's casting, viewers often feel like they're watching people who belong in that world, not just actors playing roles. Do the authoritative roles you play, especially in Yellowstone, reflect your real life personality?
I don't think so. But
You're
I
like,
continue
no.
to get cast for those. I mean, but I say that not begrudgingly. I think it was Jefferson White that came up to me on the first day, and after we had did that scene in season two, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I see why Taylor cast you. You're very stoic and intense." And I was like, "What? I didn't see myself." But then I started thinking about how my parents, would describe me when I was a kid. So maybe that's how that's I inhabit those particular characters. But I do enjoy playing those type of characters. I don't see them as authoritative, or the person that has to make the decisions. More so, I'm like, oh, this person has a lot of responsibility, and there are a lot of people depending on this person, which I think that resonates with me growing up or depending on him to get things done. And, he's got to rise to the occasion. But yeah. I don't see myself as Sheriff Ramsey, but I enjoy playing that character or Captain Walter. I enjoy playing those type of characters. But I do get a kick out of that when uh, people have that particular point of view of me.
Well,
But
that's certainly a heavy load to carry, and I'm glad that you can find the release in your character. But
yeah, yeah.
it's an interesting distinction because it shows how good casting and strong storytelling can blur the line in the best way. I mean, Taylor's world works because the performances feel honest.
Authentic. I just what I think of Taylor, I think of when I first met him. He's a very authentic person, and that trickles through all of the decisions that he makes, and that's a gift in addition to his other outstanding creative gifts that he has.
You said it, you said it. Now I wanna chat about the range that you have as an actor. One thing I admire about you, Rob, is your resume is the range, right?
Oh,
Yellowstone,
thank you.
Mayor of Kingstown, and Criminal Minds, they all live in intense worlds, but they require very different emotional muscles from an actor. How do you prepare for such different roles across projects, like Mayor of Kingston all the way to Criminal Minds?
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, I shooting there right now. That's why I'm in this airport. I'm going back and forth right now, and can't wait for you guys to see season five. But I think if given the time, or I make the most of the time that I have from the time that I get an opportunity to do a role and offer, is research, immersion, and imagination. I'll read the script and then really try to this one time and then really try to sit with it and let my imagination work and approach every opportunity of a character like it's the first time that I'm
Mm.
doing it. And that's not even me really trying to do it. It's just I do this hard reset every time. Like, oh, this is the first time. And then, even when I get on set, I'm like, oh, what am I doing? And then it clicks in and then you're like, okay, I've stormed this castle before. But yeah, and so thank you for that. As far as keeping those roles different, I don't take anything for granted and really do take every role like this is almost like the first time that I'm doing this, which I think helps me find something different in each character versus, like, oh, okay, this person's law enforcement, so he's gonna do this. It's who's the person, what is the world? And then when he starts to speak, the character starts to speak with me or to me in between the lines. I'm like, okay, I think I got something here. And if it feels fresh, then I keep going down that lane.
You know, Stanislavski said it best, and you're what you're describing is both Meisner and method acting. But
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Stanislavski always said, it's bringing truth to the imaginary. That's
One
really
hundred
what
percent.
is. Now, I want to chat. Evolution as a storyteller is something that most actors overlook, right? Beyond acting, you're also a writer and a filmmaker, which gives you a deeper understanding of structure and character and why certain stories stay with us.
Yeah.
How has your perspective changed as you've expanded into writing and filmmaking?
The more I do it, and there's a couple of projects I have in the mix right now. It's I can zero in on what it is that I can better, or where it is that I can better serve the story, for the rest of the team. Understanding not just the director's point of view, but being a director and being a writer. Um, what they're aiming for subtextually and how I can serve that story, and when you're getting on set, understanding you know how important that grip is, how important the camera person is, how important that that's all these different elements and that this camera set and that are taking place to tell this story. And when I'm on the other side of it as an actor with that experience, and continued experience, just okay, here's how I think that I can help make this person's job here easier so they can hone it up, and this person's job a little easier, understanding what their responsibility is and how we're all serving the story adventure that, that we're on.
Yeah, that's deep. I love that, Rob, because, Taylor Sheridan's universe is such a perfect example of storytelling with architecture. I mean, every
Yes.
character, every setting, every silence feels intentional, right?
Yeah. 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 I love it.
Bringing us to Bosque Ranch Live, the experience.
Bosque. Yes.
Let's go. So, Bosque Ranch is such a powerful extension of this world because it gives people something tangible. It's not just the backdrop of a story, it's a place where culture, music, and ranch life and entertainment come together in like actual real time. So, what excites
Yes.
you most about being part of Bosque Ranch Live on September 12th?
Gator.
You're,
I don't know if you've had Gator's food, but I saw
uh,
that Gator was going to be there cooking.
I
I
have
was
this
like, yeah,
vision, Rob. Not only have I heard of Gator's food, but
yeah, yeah.
but we have Point Blank tequila. So between the food and the alcohol, like I'm really preparing here. Like it's gonna,
Dude,
gonna
Gator's great. Gator did our food on Yellowstone and fantastic. And he's a great dude too. He's a funny dude. So yeah, looking forward to seeing him and of course my other Yellowstone family and family that extends out into Landman and Lioness and beyond. But yeah, I'm out. Shane Smith and the Saints, are going to be
oh,
there. We've got
love them.
Tanner Usuri. Yeah, it's going to be. I was there last year as a guest. It was so well done, especially for a first event. And so the music was great, food was great, people were great. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the whole experience. Yeah, and the
Yeah,
food.
Taylor, go big or go home, and
Go
Taylor,
big, go
ha-
home. Yeah, right.
he's
Taylor's
got
a food
secret.
guy too. Taylor's a food guy.
He's a food guy, but he's got secret weapons throughout. He's got some incredible behind the scenes women and men that are really executing and making this such an incredible event. That's the one thing with Taylor. He knows how
Yeah.
to cherry pick the right team members for each
His
project.
team, putting his
He
team.
he never stops casting. He casts for behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and again, that's another one of his many gifts. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
And well, beautifully said. He does have many gifts, and I think that that's what makes Bosque Ranch so special. It lets people step into the feeling of the world they've watched and loved, and it's
Yes.
quite a unique experience. So, why attend, right? Like people are listening. All right, well, what am I going to get out of this? But we're living in a time where audiences don't just want content; they actually want connection. They want experiences that feel alive and memorable, and more importantly, rooted in something authentic. So, for those listening and watching right now, why should people make the effort to attend Bosque Ranch Live in person?
Yeah, like you had mentioned about the connection, it felt and feels like, even with all those people that are there, like it's this connected community family type event. I mean, there's hundreds of people there, but it really felt like this really, organic, well orchestrated, connected family event. So I would say that if you are not allergic to a good time, if you are not allergic to great food and great music and great people, then come to Bosque Ranch Live. It's going to be a great time. I really, 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 really speak about that wholeheartedly. That
Yeah.
your time will be well spent, and yeah, you'll make some new friends, and you'll have a really enjoyable, memorable experience. Speaking from my own personal experience, and I look forward to seeing everybody there.
All right. And with that said, Rob, we are at the end of our date, my friend. Thank you so much
Thank you, Zed.
for coming on. It was such a pleasure. I loved hearing not only about your roles, but the road that led you there, and the craft and the patience and the way you've become part of a storytelling world that has truly captured America's attention. Congratulations on all your success, my friend.
Great. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Everyone, make sure you follow Rob Kirkland. He's on Instagram at that Rob Kirkland. And of course, keep your eyes on Bosque Ranch Live and the music concert series taking place September 12th on the ranch. You definitely want to be there. You can get your tickets right now at bosqueranchllive.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Bosque Ranch Live Concert Series. Country music's roots are deep and diverse, with stories told through raw emotion that bridge tradition and progress. Master storyteller Taylor Sheridan's music concert series at Bosque Ranch offers audiences the chance to experience both the finest country music artists and up-and-coming artists, while celebrating the Western way of life and championing the people and brands that shape the community. Head to bosqueranchllive.com to learn more.
Welcome back, beautiful New York tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the Lifestyle Edit, brought to you by Melia Hotels International. Today, we're diving into a conversation that I think every traveler, parent, entrepreneur, and dreamer can relate to, because here's the reality. We're living in the most connected era in human history. We can virtually tour destinations from our couch. We can watch someone else's vacation unfold in real time on social media. We can book a trip halfway around the world with a few taps on our phone. Yet somehow, many people feel more disconnected from their travel experiences than ever before. According to UN Tourism, global tourism has now surpassed pre-pandemic levels, with approximately 1.5 billion international travelers moving around the world annually. And at the same time, over-tourism, travel burnout, and social media driven destination fatigue, it's a real thing that has become some of the industry's biggest challenges. And here's a statistic that really stopped me in my tracks. Recent studies show that social media now influences travel decisions for a majority of younger travelers, while other research has found that many travelers report destinations looking better online than they do in real life. In other words, we're increasingly traveling through other people's experiences instead of creating our own. So, who better to help us make sense of all of this than a man who's literally seen the world from every angle? Joining me right now is Lee Abamonte, global adventure, entrepreneur, TV personality, and one of the most accomplished travelers on the planet. Lee has visited every country in the world, both the North and South Poles, every US national park, and every professional sports stadium in the United States and Canada. Now, when you've spent decades experiencing destinations firsthand, you develop a perspective very few people process. Lee, welcome to the show, superstar.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And thank you for the lovely intro.
Let's talk about, are we traveling more but experiencing less? Because when you look at the stats, global tourism is booming. Travel has recorded faster than many experts predicted, right? Flights are full, airports are packed. People are prioritizing experiences over possessions. Yet, despite all of that, I hear more people than ever saying they came home exhausted, overwhelmed, or feeling like they never truly disconnected. So, as a mom, I see families spending thousands of dollars on vacations and then spending half the trip trying to capture content instead of creating memories. You've watched travel evolve over decades, Lee. So, do you think we're actually traveling better today or simply just traveling more? What's your perspective?
I'm not sure if it's even more. It's just people are traveling for themselves for vanity a lot of times, as opposed to actually, get away from their life, their problems, their issues, explore cultural destinations, get to know a country, a city, wherever they might be going, and really immerse themselves and experience it. And that's one of the bigger problems in travel these days is the influence of social media, both positive and negative. As you mentioned in your intro, people see things online on Instagram, YouTube, whatever, and they're heavily edited or, whatever the case might be. And a lot of times that's not necessarily reflective of what a place is like, it looks like, the people are like, or even, they edit people out so it looks less crowded than it might be, or whatever the case is. But oftentimes, it's not a real reflection of the reality of the world. And most people are not actually connected to the destination that they're going to, if they're even there mentally at all, because a lot of people are still texting with their friends back home or family or FaceTime or whatever, and people don't actually disconnect and get to know the place they're at.
Yeah, I mean, that's 100%. That's such an important distinction because travel was never supposed to be about checking boxes, right? It was supposed to expand our perspective and challenge our assumptions and really reconnect us with the world around us. So, what you said is kind of like a wake up call. Like travelers, wake up. So let's talk about the elephant in the room because social media has completely transformed travel. I mean, younger travelers are increasingly discovering destinations through TikTok and Instagram and influencer content. You know this better than anyone. And some reports show nearly three-quarters of younger consumers have visited restaurants or destinations based on social media recommendations. And then you have the stats saying that Gen Z now spends more than 5 hours per day on social platforms. So there is a flip side, right? We've also created what many people call the Instagram versus reality phenomenon, where expectations don't always match reality, like you said. So, do you think social media has become the greatest travel discovery tool ever created or the greatest distortion of travel we've ever seen?
I mean, it depends how you use it, right? I mean, for me personally, even if someone as traveled as me, I've seen things on social media where like, wow, that looks pretty cool. Maybe I should check that out. Or that's a thing that I was unaware of. And maybe when I'm back in this place or I go to this place, I will go to that restaurant or do this hike or whatever it might be. So that's a positive, right? But the big negative is that people are essentially traveling just for a photo or a video, a potential viral moment or to show off to their friends. Again, as opposed to actually wanting to go to a place and experiencing it. So social media, in my mind, for the majority of people, really distorts not just reality, but traveling in general because people don't actually experience the joy and experiencing the culture of a place and seeing things with your own eyes as opposed to trying to get the same shot that your favorite influencer got a couple months ago when you discovered this place on social media. So it goes both ways. It can be helpful, and for restaurants, I find it to be relatively helpful. Just a simple Google search can help as well. And you have an idea of what you're going to do or where you're going to go. But again, for me, it's so much about self discovery and discovering things on my own based upon my own experience that makes travel really special.
Yeah, I love your perspective because some of the most meaningful moments in life are impossible to capture with a camera. I mean, they're really meant to be experienced, not posted.
Correct.
So when you talk about over tourism and this authenticity crisis that we're experiencing, one of the biggest conversations happening right now globally is over tourism, right? Some of the world's most iconic destinations are struggling to balance visitor demand with preserving local culture and quality of life. And what's interesting is that travelers themselves seem to be craving something different. People tell me they're searching for authenticity all the time. They want local experiences, they want connection, they want something that feels real. So, Lee, after visiting every country in the world, where do you think travelers are getting it wrong when it comes to authenticity? And are there still places that genuinely feel undiscovered today? Talk to me about your favorite places.
Well, I think the authenticity angle people kind of misconstrue, right? I think a lot of people, Americans in particular, try to make the local people how they want them to be as opposed to how they actually are. So they want to sort of over dramatize people or make them fit the whatever the particular narrative of their video or social media post is going to be, as opposed to just being the way they are and then adapting around that. See, that's where I think a lot of people get it wrong. And I think the authentic angle was kind of out the window when editing and video and all this stuff came into the fray. And I think there are places that are sort of, undiscovered, or but at the same time, that's not where a lot of people want to go. I mean, everyone wants to go to the same places that are pretty or photogenic or, going to go viral or whatever the case might be. But if you want to really get off the beaten path and discover the authentic places, those aren't exactly the sexiest destinations. And I think that's where people sort of miss the point, is that you are a visitor in these people's authentic reality as opposed to the opposite.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's incredibly insightful because the goal isn't finding a place nobody else has found. Maybe it's just learning how to experience a place more intentionally.
Mhm.
And so what makes a hotel unforgettable? So you've probably spent more nights in hotels than most people spend in their own guest rooms. And I find this fascinating because luxury itself seems to be changing. Today's traveler isn't necessarily looking for the biggest suite or the fanciest lobby. I think they're looking for personalization. At least I am. I mean, I'm looking for wellness, I'm looking for local immersion, I'm looking for experiences that help me understand the destination I'm visiting, right? So, after thousands of hotel stays around the world, what actually leaves a lasting impression on you, and what are hospitality brands still getting wrong about the modern traveler?
Well, I think the biggest thing that leaves an impression for me as a traveler staying in hundreds of hotels per year is a personal kind of glimpse into my world when they do a little bit of research about what I like. And, things like AI now make this a lot easier for hotels. They don't have to really dig as deep as they used to. And when you see a personal touch, like, oh, this guy likes a shower mat in his shower so he doesn't slip, things like that people may have commented on in the past or something like that, especially for someone like me who has so many things online where you can find a lot of things about priorities and things they like and dislike. So I think that's important. The personalization of the hotel experience within the room. For me, the room isn't necessarily a big deal because for me, I'm in the hotel essentially as a base camp for wherever I am in the world, right? So it's also a representation of the local area. So I like hotels, either big or small, that are representative of the city or the country or the region that they are in. So you sort of have a sense or a feel of where you are, and you're not just in like a random Marriott that you could be anywhere in the world.
Yeah, that's a great lesson for business in general. I think people may forget the amenities, but they never forget how you made them feel. So
Correct.
the personalization is great. Amenities, sure, right? But like you said, it's your base camp because you're not there to explore the hotel. You're there to explore the city you're in. Now let's talk about the remote work revolution because one of the most fascinating shifts we've seen is the rise of what many people now call bleisure travel. It's the blending of business and leisure. It's a thing.
That's the
Studies
thing.
it's a thing. Studies show more than half of business travelers are now extending work trips for personal experiences, and remote work has fundamentally changed how people think about where they live, work, and even travel, right? So, for the first time in history, right now, millions of people can answer emails from Lisbon, attend meetings from Mexico City, and spend a month living somewhere they once only visited for a weekend, right? So, has remote work permanently changed travel culturally, and what do you think that means for destinations and hospitality over the next decade?
I'm not sure if it's permanently changed, but it's certainly put a dent in things at the moment. And I think that for people who have the ability to be digital nomads, so to speak, I think it's important that they feel comfortable in a place, in an environment that sort of welcomes them and uh, goes toward their needs. So whether it's a hotel or things like an Airbnb situation where they run deals or specials to sort of entice people to stay with them and make them feel comfortable for periods of time, offering deals or whatever it might be. I think that's huge for a destination or for a hospitality brand. And for these digital nomads or people who can simply work from wherever they want. Incentivizing them with like no visa restrictions or sort of a year where you can stay and work here if you make a certain amount of money. A lot of places are doing things like that these days, and I think it's really cool. And does it really matter if they're on New York time, but they actually live in Tokyo, as long as they're working the hours that they're supposed to work and available to their coworkers or whatever it might be? I think that's the most important thing, and I think a lot of people sort of get that. And I know a lot of people who do similar things to creating travel content or wherever it might be, or work for brands. It doesn't matter where they are as long as they get their work done. And I think, especially younger people, they've got it sort of figured out. And honestly, I'm a little jealous because when I had a real job, there's nothing I hated more than going into an office. But if I could have worked wherever I want, maybe I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. I'd still be working on Wall Street, just from like China or something.
Yeah, it's truly remarkable because what used to be considered a vacation is now becoming a lifestyle for many people, to your point. And of course, you've visited every country in the world. You've stood at both poles. You've experienced cultures and religions and languages and governments and ways of life that most people will never encounter firsthand. And in today's world where division often dominates headlines, I think this final question may be the most important one. So, after everything you've seen, what's the biggest misconception people have about the world? And what's the greatest lesson travel has taught you about humanity?
Well, this is really important, especially with what's going on right now in Iran. The biggest misconception that people have are that governments are representative of the people, because in a lot of places they are not. And you can even include America in that in a lot of ways at the moment. But I'll use the country of Iran as an example. I've been there and it's just been a wonderful place. Everyone who I met there was uh, amazing. Honestly, they were so warm and welcoming to me and curious about me as like a foreigner. They wanted to talk to me. They wanted to practice English. They wanted to get to know me. They're like, wow, you're a foreigner visiting us in this country. And there's other places like that. I mean, places that are misunderstood, like Libya or Algeria or even Iraq, places like that, where you're sort of like a novelty there, and the people are incredible, and they're outgoing and welcoming to you, whereas opposed to their government might be bad, or at least our government tells you that they're bad. And it's sort of separating the media misconception, or the our government's misconception of their government and the way that they operate and live, as opposed to the real people. And the biggest thing that I've learned traveling all over the world is that people all over the world in general, we're the same. We really are. We might look different, talk different, worship different, like different sports, but there's always like a fondness and love of family, of friends, of sports, of wine, things like that, just getting together and celebrating life and family and really enjoying things. I mean, again, we might look different, sound different, worship different, but in general, we're really all the same. And that's really cool when you think about it across the entire world.
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I think that's the perfect place to end what you just said, because at its best, travel isn't about geography. It's about empathy. It's about understanding. And it's about realizing that despite our differences, we often have far more in common than we think.
Correct.
And I love the perspective that you just brought to the table. But listen, I had such a good time and I learned a lot from you. So thank you for sharing not just your travel experiences, but the perspectives you've gained from a lifetime of exploration.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to come back anytime. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
If you'd like to learn more about Lee, you could follow his adventures and gain travel insights from one of the most accomplished travelers on the planet. You could go to his website at leeabamonte.com, and you could follow him on social media. He's very active at Lee Abamonte. That's LeeAbbamonte. Thank you for listening to A Moment of Zen. This has been the Lifestyle Edit, brought to you by Melia Hotels International. Thank you for bringing us today's edition.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Melia Hotels International. From Mallorca to the world, our story began over 6 decades ago and continues across some of the most sought-after destinations on Earth. From luxury hotels that blend Mediterranean character with European prestige to destination-designed all-inclusive resorts celebrating local culture through immersive experiences, this is what we offer our guests. This is who we are. We are Melia. Discover more at melia.com.
Welcome back, beautiful New York tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the Heart of Influence series, brought to you by DiamondLake and its subsidiaries. Tonight's conversation is one I think is going to absolutely fascinate people, because we're diving into topics that sit somewhere between curiosity, consciousness, supernatural intrigue, human potential, and perhaps even the unexplained. Because whether people fully believe in concepts like remote viewing, energetic awareness, ESP, intuition, or consciousness expansion, audiences are in fact undeniably captivated by these conversations right now. And honestly, maybe that says something bigger about where humanity is emotionally. Now, we're living in one of the most technologically advanced periods in history, yet anxiety, emotional exhaustion, burnout, and loneliness, but more importantly, overstimulation continue rising globally. And recent predictions estimate the global wellness economy is approaching nearly a $9 trillion market in the coming years as more people search for healing, nervous system regulation, spirituality and mindfulness, and even self development and deeper meaning in their lives overall. Now, social media platforms continue exploding with content surrounding manifestation and consciousness and intuition and frequency, and the list goes on and on. And perhaps that's because modern life has become so loud that people are beginning to search for something beyond constant consumption and distraction. Well, today's guest has built an enormous global following around exactly those conversations. She's a certified remote viewer, author, spiritual teacher, and one of the most recognizable voices in the consciousness and supernatural space today. We're going to be welcoming Elizabeth April. And joining me, as always, is our visionary entrepreneur, founder, and CEO of DiamondLake, Brian J. Esposito. Friends, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here. And it's going to be an exceptional conversation today.
Oh, I was so excited prepping for this. I want to talk about the origin story behind your work. So, what fascinates me most about people who enter this world is that this usually isn't just a random career path. Okay, there's typically a moment, an experience, or something deeply personal that changes the direction of someone's life entirely. What specifically happened in your life that made you dedicate your career to consciousness and remote viewing and intuition and supernatural exploration? And was there a defining experience that convinced you this was more than coincidence or imagination?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a long story, but I'll keep it short. I was born with extrasensory abilities, which essentially just means that I was extra sensitive to energies, emotions, thoughts, feelings. And I was also very visually inclined. So I was able to see things that other people weren't necessarily able to see. So I grew up the weird kid, of course, and all I wanted to do was not be weird and just fit in. So that was a really big struggle for me. But after shutting down my abilities and getting really deeply involved into the physical world, athletics and sports and things like that, I really lost myself and I began questioning things when I was a teenager. I had a lot of anxiety and depression and just really didn't know if I wanted to be here or why I was here. And so that led me to my first ever past life regression when I was 16. And in about an hour and a half, I explored around 5 entire past lifetimes, lifetimes where I was a healer or a shaman, a prophet or a seer, but always a lifetime where I was able to receive information. And for me, that was my breakthrough moment. That was a direct experience that taught me that time is an illusion and that reincarnation is real. And that led me on the path of really deep diving into all these concepts and helping other people understand them as well.
And honestly, I think that's what people connect to most right now, authenticity, right?
Mm,
Whether someone fully believes every aspect of these conversations or not, audiences can feel when somebody genuinely believes they've experienced something transformative firsthand, like what you just explained.
yeah, absolutely.
Now, what makes this conversation, Brian, interesting is that you've traditionally, and I've known you for quite some time, approached business and innovation and investing and scaling and leadership from a very strategic, analytical, and data driven perspective, right? So naturally, conversations surrounding remote viewing and consciousness and intuition and supernatural awareness sound very unconventional. So, as someone who naturally questions systems and processes, what about Elizabeth's work actually captures your curiosity or even attention at this point?
Oh, yeah. Quite a lot. She's absolutely extraordinary and a fan first. And thanks to her gratefulness, be able to become a friendship with her. And I believe in her capabilities and her, for her, she's only just scraping the surface on what she's accomplishing. So your question's amazing. So I've always been sensitive to things. I've always been open to the universe, and that's been who I am. But unfortunately, most of the leaders around the world don't operate like that, right? So I have to play this balancing act between what you just mentioned, Zen, on facts, data, and then instinct, and then what is the universe really creating for you, and how can you tap into these energies and for me, frequency is extremely important on who I'm doing business with, right? Or who I decided to do business with. So I can sense things if they're off. And younger me never followed those instincts. So I think it's really important for anybody around this world to tap into these capabilities, which I believe we all have the ability to, if you were to really sit down and work on yourself and open yourself up to exactly what Elizabeth April has been doing and what has been teaching the world. And the other thing I think is really interesting is most of us have made decisions based off of just pure incorrect information around the world, even if they say they're authorities or leadership or credible people or news agencies. So if you're listening to that to make your decisions or to think what's real and what's not, then what's wrong with remote viewing and using that as a new medium as to what is really going on around the world? And I think keeping people in check is extremely important. And if people like Elizabeth April can do that based upon her capabilities, I think it's extremely important for humanity.
Now, Elizabeth, remote viewing and extrasensory perception and supernatural phenomenon, I mean, this is stuff that I'm fascinated by and really have been doing a lot of research on my own. And I consider myself an insider. Okay. I think this is where public fascination really intensifies because people hear terms like remote viewing and energetic awareness and frequency and consciousness and immediately become intrigued. And honestly, pop culture has amplified that fascination tremendously through supernatural themed entertainment and series like Stranger Things, right? I mean, I'm sure you've seen Stranger Things.
Yep.
But can you break down concepts like remote viewing and intuition and energetic awareness from your perspective? And what does it actually take to become a certified remote viewer?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a big question, but I'll try the best that I can. So, first of all, I do want to say that, I believe everyone has these gifts and abilities. You don't have to be born with it. You definitely don't have to have it in your family lineage. We are consciousness first. We're energy beings first. We're physical beings next. So everyone can naturally do this. The biggest, I think, separation between people where they're at and tapping in is their focus. We're living in a world of distraction, and so people are really outside of themselves most of the time. All you have to do is just sit down and go within, and all the answers are there. Now, with the remote viewing in particular, so because I was self-taught my whole life, I really asked myself the question back in 2024, what can I do to validate myself objectively, right? If people were to say, well, Elizabeth, I don't believe you. How could I prove myself and prove my abilities? And I ended up stumbling across an institute, a world-renowned institute called the Farsight Institute, and they have taken CIA military remote viewing techniques, and they put it into a program, and they essentially test you. So I went through a 4 to 6 hour double blind exam in order to be officially certified as a remote viewer, which basically means that you can stick me in a completely blank, empty room, give me a series of random coordinates, and I will essentially be able to see that location. So out of about 20 different blind targets, I've been 20 for 20. So I've never been off target in the blind CIA military style remote viewing. And like I said, I mean, anyone can do this. It just takes a certain amount of focus.
Well, also when that's fascinating, by the way, that you're self-taught and that you've been certified by such an impressive institute. I think one of the biggest misconceptions people have is assuming these conversations only belong in spiritual spaces, right? But I think many listeners right now are probably wondering, well, how does this actually apply to real life, like business and relationships and decision making and leadership and personal growth? So, how do you personally apply intuition and energetic awareness and your consciousness work, or even your remote viewing abilities in practical ways throughout everyday life and business decisions and relationships? I mean, you have the upper edge here. How do
Yeah.
talk talk to me?
So I, at a certain point in time, I was taking clients, and some of my clients were really big names, not only in the entertainment industry. So we're talking really famous actors, singers, songwriters, but also huge CEOs. I do still have a couple of really big CEOs, and these are very very well off men who you would never think is hiring a remote viewer to make some of their biggest business decisions. Who to fire, who to hire, what companies to merge with, how the merge is going to go. What's really cool as a remote viewer is you can take a look at different timelines and probabilities, and see the outcome of each of those probabilities based on the decisions that you make. Once again, I mean, it's cool that I can utilize those skills and abilities in the business sort of corporate world. But at the same time, just like Brian was saying, if you're able to hone in on that instinct yourself, you don't have to hire someone in order to make those decisions intuitively based on frequency, just like Brian was mentioning.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's where this becomes much more relatable for people because regardless of someone's belief system or most people, understand the importance of intuition, right? But they don't want to go beyond that. Emotional intelligence is one thing and learning how to trust themselves more deeply is another part of that conversation. So I think you're right. I think everybody could and should learn this, which I want to pivot to you, Brian. I mean, when you talk about influence and monetization and the business of belief, right? Whether people agree with these concepts or not, one thing is undeniable, Brian. Audiences are fascinated by them. And Elizabeth has built a massive community around conversations many once considered fringe. So, in today's attention economy, because that's what we're in an attention economy, influence itself has become a form of currency. We've been talking about this for the last, 3 months. So, from a branding and monetization and more importantly, a tokenization perspective, an audience building standpoint, what lessons do you think entrepreneurs and creators and brands can learn from movements like this?
I think you're talking to different personalities or audiences. I think you have one that's specifically just for entertainment purposes, and that's great. Maybe they convert to actually utilizing this as a sixth sense that they can research more or read books like Elizabeth April's come out with and actually hone in on this skill that I believe again we all can accomplish at some level. And then you have people that are just craving some other form of information that maybe is more valid than what we're pumped in and get out of that chaotic control mentality that we just find ourselves in daily just by going online or watching the news. So there's a lot people are just craving what's real, right? And what's not real. So the fact that remote viewing and Brandon Fugel's one of my best friends and on my team, he owns Skinwalker Ranch. So I've been involved in some really interesting conversations to see there's something going on out there and there's a movement happening. And I think Elizabeth April tapped in onto it at the right time for humanity. And I think the other key thing is being unbiased, right? The fact that you can release this information and share it with the world and there's no ulterior motive is key. So when you look at this, the work that I do, and obviously we have shareholders and we've got partnerships and we're for profit. But if you can do all this and utilize this new medium and not new medium, but new way to tap into a medium of information and actually help people, whether it's helping them with financial freedom, helping them put money or tokenization into real good assets and companies with real good management. All this works when you eliminate things like greed, ego, pride, and stupidity, right? So if I can utilize this medium to have the right people around me and make the right decisions, and the domino effect is just add value for people, then it works. But one wrong person in that inner circle, one wrong deal, one wrong idiot that messes all this up because they just want a new Ferrari or top on a private plane and they're going to utilize this way of doing business for their own selfish greed, then it doesn't work. So that's why I'm really interested in this. I'm grateful for people like Elizabeth April that opened my eyes and world to it. Yeah, I always felt this, but to make it more normal where people can have these conversations and not feel judged or scrutinized or feel like they're idiots is key, right? And the more people that are doing this, more people that are watching her content, listening to great conversations like this, I believe raises the frequency of humanity where we all can actually have a movement where the one percenters aren't dictating how we live our lives, what we eat, what we drink, what drugs we put in our body. There's got to be something to challenge that. And the universe has always been there to be able to tap into that.
You said it. You said it. And honestly, that may be one of the most powerful business lessons happening right now, what you just said, because people no longer simply buy products. I think they buy connection and identity and community and meaning. And so I think all of this is intertwined when you really look under the hood. Now, Elizabeth, let's debunk some myths and misconceptions before we sign off. So I think there are probably listeners tonight who are deeply fascinated by the conversation and others who remain skeptical. And honestly, both reactions are understandable. What are some of the biggest myths or misconceptions people have surrounding remote viewing and supernatural experiences and the work that you do?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of already touched upon it. I think the biggest misconception, especially with remote viewing, is that only very specific people can do it. You know, everyone can get out of the body. In fact, I tell people all the time, it's not how to remote view, it's just being aware of where your astral body is at any given moment. I mean, most people walk around in their day to day lives and they are out of body. That's when you start stubbing your toe and dropping things, and, you're like, oh, I'm really ungrounded today. It's actually because you're out of your body. So everyone usually drifts out of their body multiple times a week. It's just about being aware of where you're at any given moment. And then I think the other big misconception, especially with really anything related to the paranormal world, and of course, the entertainment industry really fuels this misconception, is that it's scary. Anything, aliens, ghosts, mediumship, weird door creaks, footsteps above you. Like there's always a scary lens to it. The amount of reality shows I've said no to because I said, I'm not going to be involved in anything that skews this in a scary or fearful way, is insane, but that fear is what kind of fuels some of the curiosity as well. So I guess the biggest misconception that I've seen is that it's not scary, it doesn't have to be, at least, right? And the more that we're exposed to this non-physical world, the less scary it becomes and the more tapped in you are to the unseen.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective because I think curiosity and discernment can absolutely coexist. And people can remain thoughtful and analytical while still exploring bigger questions surrounding consciousness and human potential. So you said it right. Now, Brian, why audiences crave the unexplained? I mean, from Hollywood to podcasts to streaming platforms to TikTok, Elizabeth's right. Supernatural themes and what if conversations are just exploding everywhere right now. So, from your perspective, as someone deeply involved in media and in influence, why do you think audiences are so captivated by these themes and these unexplained phenomena right now?
Curiosity, answers to what does this all mean? I think that's everybody's just trying to figure out, why are we here? What is our purpose? Um, for me, I always needed to believe in things like ghosts and extraterrestrial, everything you can think of, because I'm hoping, and this is just me speaking, that this is not just it, right? Because this sucks, right? This is hard. Life is hard. You wake up, your ass kicked every day, and like you're trying to battle through just to pay your bills, make your relationships work. There's all this stuff going on, and we do the best we can as human beings, right? We are I don't know who's judging us, but we're flawed because we try to do better each day and we make mistakes and we just try to evolve. But we've all had moments where you felt this other energy or this intuition or this sixth sense or deja vu or ESP. So to me, there's definitely past lives because I know things I should never have known. I
Mm.
just have this conviction about things and subjects that I didn't even learn or go through. So I'm very comfortable in that. But we also want to try to put the pieces together. We have our assumptions, we have our opinions, we have our feelings, but human beings, we want to touch and prove things, right? And I don't want to speak for everybody, but this is just me. But I also love the idea of wonderment and what else is going on there. So the unknown is fantasy. It's beautiful. It's why Disney is such a successful company. Like there's this entertainment things that we want to hope that's happening, but we also want to try to prove it. And then there's that middle ground. So that's why when I first saw Elizabeth April's content and the way that she was delivering it, I was like, this is a real deal person that I believe is doing it for the right reasons and the right way. And also, I don't want to speak for Elizabeth Taylor, but also saying things that puts herself in harm's way. Like you don't just do that unless you have such conviction and really strong feelings and some sort of evidence that what you're saying and what you're seeing is to your belief true. And then she's remote viewed some very famous people on her channels, and even YouTube takes some of the stuff down because it's really strong. It's really powerful stuff. So when you see someone like her that's doing it and putting herself out there, there's the entertainment side, but there's also people need to realize, wow, she's really putting herself at risk to try to help humanity understand what's going on, what she's seeing and what she's feeling and the energy that's coming in and how these things are important for us to know. So as the media side and the business side, how do you take all of that? How do you wrap in entertainment? Because we're like little circus animals that want to be entertained all the time. So you need to have the entertainment piece, but you also want to feed in some really valid information that helps us get some sort of education on how we can apply it to our lives, how we can have better lives, and better outcomes in all the efforts that we're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah, you're right. And I think curiosity itself has become one of the defining emotions of modern culture. People want answers, but they also want wonder again, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, at the end of the day, it, everything both of you have experienced in your respective worlds, and myself included, whether it's business consciousness, influence, audience psychology, or supernatural exploration, there's a lot that genuinely still surprises me, right? I mean, one thing that still fascinates and shocks me is that you can give people all the proof in the world, and yet they will still question it because it doesn't fit the norm that they grew up believing, right? Elizabeth, you've been exposed to a lot of skepticism. What is the one thing that kind of still shocks or challenges the way you think about human potential and reality itself?
I have a very different take on the skeptics. I'm glad they're questioning, you know, bring it on. I would much rather someone question me and everything else, good, bad, ugly, in between, right, wrong, truth, false, um, than not question. So I think that questioning the narrative and being skeptical is a really great place to be because not only am I curious, but I'm also quite a big skeptic. And for me personally, I don't believe anything unless I experience it firsthand. So I don't assume that anyone's just going to believe me unless they experience either the resonance behind the information or they
Mhm.
experience it firsthand themselves. So that's why I always say in any of my videos, take it or leave it, right? I'm not here to convince you. I'm just here to present information objectively, and it's for you or it's not.
You're preaching to the choir, sister. I love the work you do. I'm very much a fan. Brian was right. I love this conversation. I think that, and honestly, what you just said, I think that might be the perfect place to end, because whether someone believes every aspect of these topics or not, one thing is undeniable: that human beings are still searching. We're still questioning. We're still curious, and perhaps still discovering how much we truly don't know.
Mhm.
And at least I'd like to think of myself, and I think Brian will agree, that I know enough to know that I don't know everything.
Mhm.
So that's where it ends. So, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us. This was one of those conversations that I think people will continue discussing long after the show ends.
Perfect. Thank you so much again for having me on.
To learn more about Elizabeth April, you can head directly to her website at elizabethapril.com. You could follow her directly on Instagram at elizabeth.april, and be sure to check out her latest work and book, discussions surrounding anxiety, consciousness, intuition, and human potential. And of course, thank you to my incredible co-contributor, Brian J. Esposito, CEO of DiamondLake. This has been the Heart of Influence series, brought to you by DiamondLake and its subsidiaries. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut.
Discover the refreshing taste of 100% pure coconut water that actually tastes great. Naturally sweet with no artificial flavors or added sugar. It's packed with electrolytes to keep you hydrated throughout your day. And with 10% of profits going to charity, every sip makes a difference. Pure taste, pure goodness. Experience nature's Gatorade. Visit Once Upon a Coconut or naturesgatorade.com.
Welcome back, beautiful New York tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to Sculpting the Future series, brought to you by Alo Clay from Tiger Aesthetics. Tonight, we're going to explore one of the biggest health and beauty conversations happening in America right now. Millions of Americans have embraced GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Zepbound. While the weight loss results have been remarkable, physicians are now seeing an entirely new challenge emerge. Many patients are successfully losing the weight they've struggled with for years, but they're also experiencing unexpected changes in facial volume, in body composition, in skin quality, and overall contour. The conversation is quickly shifting from simply losing weight to maintaining healthy proportions, preserving muscle, and restoring volume where it's needed most. Right now, joining us is one of New York City's leading aesthetic surgeons. Dr. Umbareen Mahmood is a board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon. She's a double Ivy League trained, specialized in aesthetic treatments of the face, breast, and body. She's been featured in Allure, in Glamour, in Town and Country, in New Beauty, and the Zoe Report, and that's just to name a few. And she's known for delivering sophisticated, natural-looking results that complement her patients' lifestyles. Dr. Mahmood, welcome to the show, superstar.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
So excited to have you. So I want to jump right in because this is a hot topic right now. I want to talk about what doctors don't tell patients about GLP-1 weight loss, right? So millions of Americans have embraced the Ozempics of the world, and the headlines focus on the weight loss. What we don't hear nearly as much are about the changes happening underneath the surface, right? So the research suggests that a meaningful percentage of weight loss on GLP-1 medications can come from lean tissue and muscle mass, not just fat. So what do you think patients are most surprised to learn after significant GLP-1 weight loss, and what are doctors just not talking about enough?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that so many of our patients are on GLPs, whether it's to lose significant amounts of weight or even 5 to 10 pounds. And I think the most difficult thing is that patients will commonly say, like, I lost weight, but somehow I look older. And I think the biggest thing is they are really not appreciating how of that weight is really coming from not just fat, but also muscle. They're not hungry. They're not increasing their protein intake. Studies show that you really should be taking 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of protein daily. And they'll just say, well, I don't really feel hungry and I'm not really resistance training. So, I think that's a major component that has to be addressed with weight loss.
And I think that's incredibly important because losing weight and maintaining healthy body composition are not necessarily the same thing, to your point, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what about the problem nobody expected? Because one unintended consequence of successful weight loss is that patients often lose volume in places they never wanted to lose it, right? I mean, the face can appear older, like you said, the breasts can lose fullness, the buttocks may flatten, the body doesn't always reflect how healthy the person actually feels. So what are the most common physical changes you're seeing after major weight loss, and which essentially areas concern patients the most?
Yeah, I think that patients who are losing significant amounts of weight sort of expect, if they have bariatric surgery, if they're on GLP weight loss, they sort of expect, okay, everything's going to change. I think what's more surprising is the people who are maybe on it, because they have an upcoming wedding or a reunion or something, some event, some trip, and they think, okay, I've only lost 10 pounds, and suddenly everything feels like it's changed. So a lot of breastosis, meaning sagging of the breasts, a lot of buttock deflation. I think that's one of the biggest things for people. And then secondarily, they'll say, okay, my body looks great, but I look like I aged 10 to 15 years. So they get a lot of temporal hollowing, a lot of mid-face, volume loss. They start to see early signs of jowling. And these are things I think they just didn't expect with even 10 to 15 pounds of rapid weight loss.
Something to think about, right? It's a
Yeah.
trade-off. I mean, it's really a trade-off. Now, I want to talk about the hidden downside of repeated liposuction, right? Because I know lots of women who have gone back for multiple liposuction procedures over the course of their, middle age. So for years, I mean, liposuction has been one of the most commonly performed cosmetic procedures here in America and even globally. But many patients don't realize that every time fat is removed, they're reducing a resource that many discount for later, right? Because it could be useful for restorative procedures. So, what should patients understand about repeated liposuction procedures? And can aggressive fat removal limit options later in life if volume restoration becomes necessary?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So liposuction is one of the most common cosmetic surgery procedures, as you mentioned, worldwide, and definitely in the US. So almost every surgery I do involves some form of liposuction, whether it's a breast aug. People will say, I'm already under anesthesia. Let's just include lipo of for women, lower belly, men, love handles, lower back, bra fat, all these little stubborn areas. And then often, with increased weight loss or pregnancies, patients will say, well, I don't really want a tummy tuck, even though I have laxity. I just want more lipo. Number one, they've already maybe had lipo in their early 20s, early 30s. So B, now where it's a laxity issue, not really a fat issue. But so aside from obviously the scar tissue, the fibrosis that can come from repeated liposuction, a lot of people are using laser lipo and all sorts of, devices that we have, but they can cause more fibrosis and scarring. Is that, if you want the fat later on, they'll say like, oh, I just, my breasts are deflated, my buttock, my hip dips. Well, now there's no fat, and even if they've had liposuction previously, even just the weight loss alone has taken out that resource for them.
Now, I want to talk about what happens when there isn't enough fat to transfer. So, one of the challenges, and this happened to me after I explanted my breast implants and I was considering fat transfer, is I just didn't have enough fat to give. And one of the challenges emerging in aesthetic medicine is that many post GLP-1 patients simply don't have enough excess fat available for traditional fat transfer procedures. But at the same time, they're often the exact patients seeking volume restoration, right? So, how significant is this issue becoming in your practice, and what challenges does it create when a patient wants restoration but doesn't have sufficient donor fat available?
Yeah, I think it's a real problem, right? So a lot of patients will say, well, I have gone to maybe med spas or derms or plastic surgeons, and I've done injectables like polylactic acid, which is Sculptor, right? And they've done repeat injections of it. And they're like, yeah, it's great. But then a year later, I have to repeat. And that's a really big financial burden. So, there are areas, of course, that you can do things like implants, i.e., breast. We have buttock implants now, fewer people are obviously doing them in the US. But there are certain areas that potentially implants can exist, but then there's a lot of other areas of the body that there are not great solutions and people don't really want implants for. And I think that's where sort of these injectable adipose fillers really play a really big role. Alo Clay being probably the most popular one and the most known one, which is obviously an FDA approved adipose filler. And I think that's really changed the landscape and changed the game for people who didn't have options otherwise. And only in a certain amount of squats per day are going to build your, buttock area back up.
I love it, and they really solve the problem in the marketplace. They are their own category, and I love that, it's it's a product that really lives up to the clinical verification and the clinical research, because safety and efficacy are extremely important. And I know that the company takes that extremely seriously and has a great medical team and advisory board. And I'm a patient. I've had Alo Clay done on my breasts. I went up 1 cc, and it was just a great experience overall, because I wasn't a candidate for any kind of fat transfer, and I did not want to reimplant in my body after just knowing too much and being part of the insiders information. But yeah, no, it worked out great for me. But it really highlights what you just said, the gap in the marketplace that most consumers probably don't even realize existed or exists until they're sitting in a consultation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what people don't realize too is that, even autologous fat, which is fat transfer that we take from patients and transfer back, that has up to a 50% fat loss. So even if you have your own fat, you're limited, right? So let's say you're doing a fat transfer to your buttock, right, which is a BBL. Even then, right, the restrictions of not being able to sit for a month are significant, right? For most of us, for our jobs, there's no way you're standing and not looking awkward. Um, then, realizing that you're going to lose half the fat you put in. And for breast, it's an even bigger issue because if you lose half the fat or you have an asymmetry in how much volume gets resorbed, now you have an obvious asymmetry in breast where if you're wearing, a bikini or something, you're seeing different cup sizes. And for women, I think one of the reasons we do breast treatments is to improve symmetry. And I think with Alo Clay, the beauty is we really do have precise control over how much volume we're injecting. And a lot of us that have been doing a lot of Alo Clay have seen that we actually have better fat longevity and better fat take than we do with autologous fat. So that's another huge, plus. Instead of doing repeat fat transfers, I'm a big believer in sort of like one and done. Do it once, do it the right way, and just be done with it.
Proprietary stuff. You are well, thank you for all this information, but you are right on. I mean, I think when you have a product like that with an adipose matrix and listen, it's donor derived and it's gone through a 5-step purification process. And yes, I mean, this is a very, very proprietary new category in regenerative medicine. And I'm so excited where it's headed, because if you really think of the opportunities I mean, where this could go at some point with the breast study is that you have women who've undergone aesthetic flat closures who have no options, who've lost their femininity and
Yeah.
just are not candidates for implants, right? I have a lot of friends and they're looking at me, they're like, wait a minute, Zen, could this be possible? Like, can I have my breasts back? And I'm like, I think that's where it's headed because if you can, to your point, right, Dr. Mahmoud, if you can fix these asymmetries, if you can go up a cup size, a breast size, right, um, non-invasively in under 90 minutes, this is pretty proprietary. I mean, I don't know of any other company doing what Alo Clay is doing. So I love that you gave us all this information and knowledge because now there's a solution. There's a solution.
Yeah, and I think too, I think especially a market like New York, and I have patients that fly in all over the world, but I think especially a market like New York where you have so many high achieving, really busy, individuals, men and women, they don't have time for surgery. They don't have time for downtime. And as much as I always say, I'm a surgeon, I love to operate. We have so many tools sort of in our toolbox of whether it's, tools like SoftWave that are non-invasive, stimulating collagen, tightening technologies, but also things like Alo Clay. So it's really nice to now be able to offer patients who don't necessarily have the downtime of surgery. I have patients who are finance execs and I'll do their hip dips or their buttock and then they're on a flight the next day. And they're like, I would never have been able to do this otherwise. This just wouldn't have been possible for my lifestyle. And so even from that standpoint, I'm really sensitive to that too. I think it's really nice that now we're sort of including a whole different population of people who don't want to undergo surgery. Maybe they're not candidates for surgery, who don't have to just live with saying like, okay, I lost weight. I feel better about that. But now there's always other host of issues that I'm just sort of stuck with. So I like having the ability to help people just not feel stuck.
This is so exciting. So this is like getting me, you know, feeling extremely confident that not only is the industry evolving very rapidly and quickly, but when you have companies innovating at this level that are solving real world problems and giving women and men, but women mainly, incredible sustainable solutions that are healthy for their body and long term. I mean, it's a win-win. I mean, now you just capped the marketplace, and I think that's where innovation becomes exciting, not because it's new, but because it's helping solve a very real problem physicians are facing every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head with that. That's so true. And I always tell patients, if it's not something I would do myself, I would never offer it. And I'm not someone who's really a cowboy that's going to say like, "Oh, I saw this in whatever country, like let's adopt it now." I'm very big on like I want scientific studies. I want there to be clinical trials. I want to see that there's, really good before and afters, really good data. And so, I'll sit down with the president of the company of Tiger and say like, "Walk me through your data. Walk me through how you've created this product." And I think, having done so many patients now who are just, I've never had a patient say, they're always just like, I love that this is on the market. I wish I had done this sooner, and they couldn't have. It just came out not too long ago. But I think it's something where, again, it's sort of like just getting the word out there and helping people understand that this is an option for them. And to your point, even about, repeat lipo, I have a lot of patients who've had lipo multiple times with other providers, and now they have a lot of contour irregularities. They won't even wear a bathing suit, which is unfortunate, right? Because that's the reason they did the surgeries. And so now, they have no fat to transfer. We have no way to correct that. And so now, again, Alo Clay, another tool that we can use to address that as well.
Yeah, 100%. This is great. So the conversation today really isn't simply about just making people smaller, right? It's becoming increasingly focused on shape, proportion, tissue quality, very important, and muscle preservation. We've been talking about that throughout this entire interview and restoring what time or weight loss may have taken away. So as body contouring continues to evolve, right, what should patients really be looking for? Because there's a lot of options. So they're going to be evaluating treatments and even technologies, different consultations, different doctors' offices that are going to claim to restore volume and improve body shape. So what should patients be looking for, Dr. Mahmoud?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think you're so right, right? The landscape is evolving so quickly. And I think often when patients come in for consultation, they'll just name 100 devices to me that they've heard. And they're like, I don't know what any of these do. I don't know if I need them. Like, what is this all about? And it's confusing. And it can be confusing even for, dermatologists, plastic surgeons in the industry. When we go to conferences and you hear about a new device, a new injectable every day, it's overwhelming, right? So I think number one, I always say, is there really good data? Are there really good before and afters? Our practice, integrated something called TrueFlex, which is a muscle stimulating technology exactly for that, to help patients who've really lost muscle volume, help rebuild that, right? So the technology should serve a purpose for you, but then also it shouldn't burn bridges for the future, right? So I always say there are devices that might stimulate collagen, but they go really deep. They also burn fat. They also cause scarring in the deeper layers of the tissue. If you want a facelift in 5-10 years, now you've sort of potentially burned the bridge for that. So I think, again, always thinking ahead in terms of future things and what you're looking for, but then B, also not saying, I'm going to do all these non-surgicals when I really just need a tummy tuck, because no amount of non-surgical is going to get rid of loose skin, the laxity, the stretch marks. And patients I often see will spend $50,000, $60,000 with all these devices and then still come to me and say, I need a tummy tuck. And again, to my point, A, it's potentially made the surgery more difficult because now there's scar tissue, but B, do the right thing once and be done with it. Don't dance around it. As much as people may not want surgery in certain aspects, there's a reason that we do so many restorative and total body transformations, because there's no way to just lift the breast without lifting a breast. There's no way to remove loose skin without doing a tummy tuck. And then using all these other technologies really wisely as adjuncts to improving your result or complement the result, I think is really important.
Wow, Dr. Mahmoud, this was so educational. I mean, I learn something every time I interview an expert, but you were extra expert.
I appreciate that.
To learn more about Dr. Mahmoud, you could visit her directly on her website at drumahmood.com and on the gram at dr.umbareen-mahmood. And to learn more about the innovative technologies and regenerative approaches helping shape the future of aesthetic medicine, you could visit aloclay.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York iHeartRadio. That was Sculpting the Future series. We'll be right back after this.
This is A Moment of Zen in partnership with Alo Clay. Looking to add volume or contouring to your body? What if there was a non-surgical solution to increase volume naturally? No liposuction, no fillers, just real lasting transformation with little downtime. Consider Alo Clay, an innovation in body contouring. Follow on social at Alo Clay. Alo Clay is intended to be applied subcutaneously in localized areas of the body to provide cushioning and support to the patient's body where adipose tissue naturally exists. Alo Clay does not contain viable cells and has no systemic effect and is not dependent upon the metabolic activity of living cells for its primary function. This allograft is intended for single patient use only. Human tissue shall not be offered or dispensed for veterinary use.
Welcome back, beautiful New York tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. I'm going to pass the mic to our Going Deep host, Lana Kerr, for an exclusive conversation with guest Lori Harder, entrepreneur, investor, and host of the globally recognized Earn Your Happy podcast. Lana, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited. I have the honor of speaking with the amazing Lori Harder. She is truly a success. She's helped so many women to achieve success. Today, though, we're going to talk about the cost of success. So I want to turn it over here to Lori. Lori, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Going deep. Before we get into the questions, Lori, just tell our audience a little bit about you.
Well, I come from a really small town. I think that's important to say because I think people can look at you and look at me and think, wow, they must have always been that way. And a lot of my story with wanting to help women into, whatever their big dream is comes from my childhood of being raised in a really small town in a restrictive religion, being told that, success was not important and it was really about going door to door in my religion. So it was really about dedicating your life to God, which is so beautiful. Mm-hmm. But if you have big ambitions outside of that, it wasn't fitting into that reality. So growing up in a small town, I had the realization as a teenager that I wanted to be fit, and my family was very overweight. I wanted to inspire people in fitness because that is what was making me start to feel good and break out of my anxiety and break out of how I felt like I wasn't feeling good in my body at a really young age. I was gaining weight. My family was overweight. There was a lot of anxiety and depression. So fitness really became that vehicle for me that started to change how I felt. And through that, when I realized, oh my gosh, I think I have this really big calling in fitness to help other women to wake up, to find themselves, to know that there's more for them, it wasn't aligning with the family that I was being raised in, because it was really about just, dedicating your life to that religion. So what ended up happening is at the age of 18, I left that religion, which meant I had to leave my family, my friends, everything that I've ever known behind, and had to make that choice to either choose myself and what I knew I wanted to do, or leave everything, in my past behind. And so that started to set the precedence of what I really help people through, because it doesn't matter if it's a religion that you're leaving. If you're changing your identity into the person that you came here to be, a lot of times that doesn't align with where you came from.
Yeah.
And so I love to help women in those transitions. And I think we go through them multiple times in our life. And so whether you're transitioning into starting a new business, and maybe your friends that you have right now don't understand and they don't support you and they say, who are you to do that? Or you're not smart enough for that, or whatever that looks like. It's really building that foundation of how do we get you from there to over here without killing yourself, without feeling so lonely, without feeling, hopeless.
Yeah, and there's definitely a cause. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that, Lori. And it's funny, fitness and wellness is something that I also would attribute to where I kind of jumped off from in terms of success. I feel like when people become their best selves, when they shed the unwanted weight, unwanted fat, as I used to call it, fat loss coach, they just see themselves in a very different way. They become better people. They become better wives, better husbands, better individuals, better employees, better business people. So I like that that's what was the catalyst to get you going in that.
It's like it is like a spiritual awakening. It's kind of like before you start moving your body and taking care of yourself, you don't get to hear all the messages that this amazing physical body is meant to channel for you.
And Lori, my goodness, you're so far away from that image that you had of yourself. You look amazing.
Thank you so much.
Amazing. For those of you who aren't going to be seeing her, because it's going to be on just voice, her body is absolutely wicked.
Oh, stop. Go on.
Okay, so Lori, so let's talk about success. First of all, how would you define success?
Oh my gosh. If you would have asked me this throughout different periods of my life, it would look very, very different. I think in the beginning, success to me, when you're coming from a small town and a family that really struggled with money, there was a time where success just looked like I wanted to be able to go into the store and buy things without looking at the price tag. I was like, whatever amount that was for me at the time, I don't even know. It probably wasn't much. But I was like, if I just don't have to worry about looking at the price tag of everything when I go to check out, I remember just being like, I just want to buy the organic cottage cheese. Without feeling it. And so at that point in my life, I think it's really important for people to know it's hard to think of the big why and the big definition of success when you're so in the thick of it.
Yeah, in the beginning.
In the beginning,
it's hard.
Yes. So I think that we have to kind of figure out what that looks like at different points. Otherwise, it feels like it's such a far leap sometimes in our life. So for me back then, that was success. Then all of a sudden, success became, I need to check off some things off this list to feel validation in my life. And whether that was right or wrong, there was a point where I just felt like I needed to prove things to myself.
Like what?
And finishing things. So I told you I came from a really small town and it was all about religion growing up. Well, I never graduated high school. And I had this story that I was dumb and that I wasn't smart enough. And so even that was in the family of oh, your sister's smart, but you're not really the smart one. We're not sure what you're going to do, but you're funny. And it was but you're funny, so that's cute. And it was okay, well, that's great, but you don't realize as a kid how much that sticks with you. And so my 20s really became defined by learning discipline and needing to finish things, just finishing something. I remember there was one run where I'd gone on a run. I was really into fitness at this point.
So we're talking about marathons?
And it was just a regular,
right.
Yes.
Okay.
It was just a regular run, a 3-mile run. I'm I love that you gave me that finish line already. So this was kind of more at the beginning of my fitness journey in terms of actually getting into it as a career. And this was before I was a fitness trainer. And I just remember thinking I wanted to be a personal trainer, but I didn't finish anything. I didn't finish high school. I had never really done anything outside of a retail job. I worked all of these different random jobs. I got married at a younger age and he was the breadwinner. So it was kind of I was just working these random jobs that gave me no fulfillment. So I had gone out on a run one day and I just got to this place where, when your soul is like knocking at you and it's 2 a.m. every single night and you know you're meant for big things and it's keeping you up at night and it's like, there's so much more for you. And at the time though, what was really blocking me is I believed, number one, I wasn't smart enough. And I also really suffered with panic attacks. So growing up, the family had like a lot of panic attacks, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. It was kind of like the more I watched people have them, the more I had them. And so when I was, when I had gotten married and I was going on those runs and I was just trapped in these dead end jobs that I didn't graduate, so I didn't feel like I had anywhere to go, my story was, well, I'm not educated, so I have nothing that I can do. I have nowhere I can go. I was kind of blaming my parents at that point instead of like taking personal accountability. So I was in a lot of blame, I was in a lot of anxiety, and one day I went on this run and it was just this place where I was like so sick of being woken up all night long, knowing that I was meant for more, and you can get really sick and tired of your own shit.
Yes.
I don't know if you could swear on
Yes.
here.
Yes.
But that is the place that I was at, and I just kept getting hit with like these life 2x4s, meaning just bad things after another kept happening, and I really believe that's when life is trying to wake you up. And I went on this run and I'm like, I've never completed a full 3-mile run and I've always wanted to. Like I can't, and so my thought was, I can't even finish this. That was the initial thought. And I was like, what if I said, I finish everything? Like instead of always saying, I can't finish this, I had started doing some personal development work at that time. I found Landmark Forum and Tony Robbins around that time. And I was like, what if I just said, I finish everything instead? And so I remember going on that run and I started saying, I finish everything, I finish everything. And I was like, you're not going to quit this run unless you die.
Oh my God,
you're going to keep running. And so I just finished a 3-mile run, extremely slow, you guys. It wasn't anything big. It was not monumental, but this became one little proof point for me. And I think people forget that, like, they look at this grand career of you or I, and this all started with one little proof point to yourself. And so that was really the beginning of like, okay, I can do this, I can finish this, I'm going to move forward, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, it's a collection. You collect these things that gives you guarantees, it's almost like a stamp of approval. Yes, I can do this, I can do this. Our paths are so similar. It's funny because I started running and I grew up in Jamaica where the high school I went, you really don't run. Like we're as an immaculate girl, we weren't to run. You're not supposed to run. You're not supposed to sweat.
Okay.
So, but when I was here, after kids, and I wanted to lose weight, and just before I started this business, I was looking at people who were slim, and not even the people doing Zumba were slim. The people who were running, and I said, I am going to run, and that's why I started running. So I didn't run a mile before I made the decision that I'm going to do a full marathon. So that's the kind of person.
That's the
so
best.
I did that. I said,
Okay.
I'm going to do a marathon. And in 6 months, I did a full marathon. And I
Wow.
just was not, the same thing. I am not stopping. Discipline is everything. Discipline is everything, But I love that. So, okay, so success was very first. So first it was financial. Then it was just hitting these different pointers. Now what is it to you?
Success to me today is really, and I'm redefining it again right now because I'm in a place where I have gotten to check off a lot of big boxes in my life, like things I never thought that I would do. In terms of success, I feel like I'm very successful from the outside world, but now success to me is really getting back to looking at am I doing right now like what my absolute zone of genius is, meaning like why was I put here, and am I able to use that at least 50 to 60% of my days? Like really am I
love this.
Like richly enjoying my days with the people that I love? And I think also as you build your career, there's a lot of people that you have to be friends with and that you're around who maybe if you weren't building certain careers, you wouldn't be friends with. And I'm just being really honest.
Yes.
I'm in a place where I'm like, I really want to spend time with people who want to spend time with me.
Yeah.
Like really bad. Like at this point, I want to start to be looking at my life in terms of, are these people going to be the people who are like I call them my rocking chair friends? Like, are we going to be 70?
Yeah.
And are these going to be the people that I want to invest in? Because I know that I'll have many relationships still that aren't my rocking chair friends, but I want to make sure that I'm starting to look at my life in terms of, Do I have those people? Am I investing in them? Because, building a career takes a lot of time.
Yes.
Building a new business, building a career, having your family. But I also think friends and community are so important, and it doesn't need to be big. It can be 2 to 3 to 5 people or different, a few different couples that you really, get along with. But I remember my mom telling me at like probably teenage age, and she was like, it's really sad because when you get older, you don't have any friends because you just get really busy and your life happens and you wake up and you just have your family. And I was like, that's great, but also it's not, because I do want a few of those really amazing friends,
Yes.
Yes. And
I think I saw that on your page. There was a panel that you were on, and they were talking about checking people off every year. But I agree with you. It's when you're building, and I think that goes into the cost of it. But when you're building your business, sometimes you don't have the time to invest in other people, and friends take time. So I love that you are now at the place in your life that you've accomplished these things, and now you're looking internal. You're looking for even more fulfillment, the giving and the contribution aspect. So I love that, But Lori, what belief about success stopped being true for you?
What belief about success stopped being true for me? Oh, I think you can get really wrapped up, you as in me.
Yes.
It's easy to get wrapped up in thinking that you need to do certain things or be certain things. Like you can see, maybe your mentors or your friends doing things, that it's very easy to think that you should be doing those things too. And so I think that now success really is looking at, what do you love? Who do you love to be around? But I had to redefine like, success is not just that lane, or it's not if you're the founder of a company, or it's not if you exited the company that's only successful. It's not if you reach this money mark, you're only successful. Like you really have to define it so clearly for yourself, or you will feel like a failure. Like you have to figure out which parts of your life you're successful in. And there are some days that when business is hard, I'm like, but I'm a really good friend. Like I am such a good friend. And at the end of my life, what's really going to matter? And that's hard for people who really are high achievers, because it's like, no, this does matter over here. But at the end of your life, what is really going to matter? Who is going to be there? Who's even going to be there with you to celebrate those successes? It's a really interesting balance of how do we become the best version of ourselves while also making sure that you're not going to have too many regrets in your life.
And as you mentioned before, I think it's very difficult to decide on all of those things early, because you're still understanding who you are.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you this question so younger people can hear from someone who is a high achiever, someone who has now reached this point. If you were looking back, what would you necessarily have done differently? Like, how would you have defined? Like, in other words, if you were taking this, whatever you're going to say right now, and I could put it back into the past, how would that have changed anything that you've done?
I would have learned how to enjoy the process more, for sure.
Yes.
I remember, there were points that I really enjoyed it, but I had a moment when I had started doing fitness competitions, and my big dream was to win a fitness competition and get on magazine covers, and I went on to do that in the future. But while I was in the process, it was about 4 years of competing in fitness competitions. And I did about 3 or 4 per year, and they're very grueling. The diet is grueling, the training is grueling. It can be very isolated, but it can also be with a team. And I just got so deeply into that pretty much by myself. Even though I was somewhat with a team, I really could have used them a lot more. I ended up going 4 years of just like completely relentless, very isolated, very much a solo journey on that, very alone, like feeling pretty depressed, if I'm being honest, while going for that dream. But I just had that insane drive of kind of proving things to myself at that point. So I ended up 4 years in. I remember I was on stage it was a Fitness Universe competition, and I was backstage and I was listening to music and I was rehearsing and just thinking all the things. And, I go out on stage to do my part, and they call you back out to see who the winners are. And it's this very slow motion moment where it's almost like I felt like I was going to win and I knew it. And I actually ended up winning, which is mind-blowing and amazing. And it was slow motion. I remember looking out and seeing my husband, seeing my coach, having them bring me the flowers, like falling to my knees, crying, sobbing, having this incredible, life-changing, like, I can't believe that I got to this point moment. And then when you're done, I was in my hotel room by myself. I mean, my husband was there, but he's
yes.
and he celebrated with me, you know, briefly, but it's like I just had this moment of, I literally sat on the bed and I said, I missed it. I was like, I missed what it was about.
Yes. Oh,
I'm
my
like,
goodness.
I have friends who didn't win who are out with their friends right now.
Yes.
And I missed it. And so that was the moment for me that I was like, oh, you have to build with your people and you have to enjoy it. Or it doesn't matter how sweet that moment is, how victorious, it will last 20 minutes.
Yes.
It will last you 20 minutes unless you are out with your girls, out with your friends, thinking of the journey, remembering how hard it was together, like all of those things. And so I will say that you really need to figure out how to build with people. Like, I believe that people, this is why the message of like building in community, I wrote a book literally on deepening superficial friendships, because you will feel so alone in those endeavors and you'll look back and you'll feel like you missed it.
You know something too, though, Lori? I mean, at least you had your husband. There are some women who along this journey forget that. And I remember early on, because Terry and I, my husband and I, we've always worked together, and I would be, and he's like, we need time. Like, I have to do this. No. We need, I don't care how tired you are, you need to make energy for me.
Yes.
You know? And it's the same thing, you can extend that. You need to make energy for other individuals because they are a part of who life is supposed to be about. It's still about people, you know? So I love that you're saying that. So tell me something, when women grow too fast, like, and there's such a thing, possibly, yes, but if they step into these bigger rooms, I guess those are the things that start to break, right? That could break. Speak a little bit more about that. What are the things that could break for growing too fast? And what do you think that's such a thing as growing too fast?
Well, yeah, I do think there is such a thing as growing too fast, but I think that you can manage it with the right people around you. So let's use, for example, I'll give you an example of what growing too fast can feel like. You know, I've had friends who put out a viral post and wake up the next day and their follower count is like, it went from 300,000 to 1 million. Now, that type of growth for them was so fast that their nervous systems couldn't even handle the comments that were coming in. It was like, they did not have the capacity to read the opinions at that rate. It was just like complete meltdown, breakdown. If they wouldn't have had people to help them, like, figure out how to come back from that, take time to maybe do some therapy, do some friend time, do some like, hey, get off your phone, pry that out of their hand. That doesn't always happen for people. Sometimes people can experience that like massive overnight celebrity. You know, look at different pop stars. Your nervous system, you don't have, number one, your capacity quite yet to do that, meaning like you don't even know how to process it because you haven't processed maybe, you know, once a day comments, and how do you kind of let those fall to the wayside? Now you have thousands of them all at once. So you maybe don't have the network also that you can go to who understands that. So a lot of times when you're stepping into these bigger rooms, I think it's really important to have built your network as well. Like, as I'm stepping into bigger rooms as being, you know, being a product founder is very different from what I've done before. And I had built my network and my capacity around what I was already doing. Like, I had taken years to build around, you know, fitness and digital courses and books and events. I felt very, very, very like good in those areas after years of figuring out how to feel good in those areas. Well, now, even though I am the person who built success in this area, you're a baby again. Like when you go into another brand new room with brand new people, where I am the tadpole, like I am the smallest fish in the sea with a small, tiny baby company in this world of people who understand products. They're still speaking a different language than me. I don't quite understand it yet. They can be very overwhelming. You can just get in your head and you can collapse. What big rooms can collapse you if you're not prepared for how to view them when you walk in.
So how do you prepare? That's what I'm.
Yes. Okay. So if I'm going into, let's just say I'm getting ready to go somewhere that I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm going to pitch an investor. Maybe I'm going to go into a room with a bunch of high-powered founder women in this area that I'm not used to. I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to be as interested as possible. I am not going to have to hold myself to a standard of competing with them. I don't need to feel like their exact peer. I don't need to go in there and be like, oh my gosh, I have to be the most interesting person. I have to meet everyone. My career depends on if they like me or not. I work really hard on letting all of that go. And I'm like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to be as interested as possible. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to make people feel good. I'm going to hear if I can connect people. I'm going to say, oh my gosh, I just heard that this person over here had this going on. Do you know them? And maybe I'm even going to start connecting people within that room. But I'm going to see where my opportunity to add value is going to come up, and it always will. Even if it's in line, like literally I'm thinking about an event that I went 2 years ago and I was I felt very intimidated and overwhelmed. And it was like a bunch of these like famous authors were all on stage, and a bunch of the these LA influencers when I first moved to LA, and I was like this smaller town girl coming from Minneapolis, like very Midwest, way out of my element in Los Angeles. And it was in Hollywood, and I remember just being in there and being like, oh my God, like, okay, like let's get our bearings. Like, you know that you're valuable. Like, you know that feeling where you know you're valuable, but sometimes you can go in those rooms and you're just like, I don't know. I don't know what I have to offer. And I remember standing in line at the bathroom, and there was another girl who looked like a deer in headlights as well. And I'm like, okay, she looks more scared than me. So I remember just asking her, I'm like, hey, why did you come here? What are you excited about? And it was like in that moment that I realized, oh my God, the power that we all have as attendees to like go find the person who maybe is struggling as well, and like, let's go meet some people. Like, let's go see what we can do, and like, let's go be interested in other people. I just remember talking to her and going and talking with other people, and like the event completely like flipped on its head. And I had this realization, I'm like, wow, that was like, I was so valuable in that moment and got to go meet so many other people by helping someone. So there's a beautiful quote. It's when you feel helpless, go help someone. And I try to always remember that as like, okay, if you're going into a room, like, okay, well, I might not be able to add a ton of value, but where could I just listen or be interested?
Wow. So what I'm hearing you saying, Lori, is just, I think, so important, is your ability to recognize that people are just people. And you're a valuable person in yourself, but everyone has value. And you may be in a room that you may not understand everything in that moment, but your value will be shown to someone. And I think that gives you the confidence, and that it helps you build relationships. And even in just our short encounter, I can tell that you're definitely a people person. And I think that's definitely one of the main reasons why you're so successful. The ability to connect with people is so important, and you clearly have that ability. And I think that's what you're talking about. When you move into these larger rooms, in order to not collapse, you need to just simply, you need to still connect with people. I think that is the key.
It's life-changing.
Yes.
It will completely shift any fear that you have the moment you connect with one person, you find a commonality. That's why when you're going into these rooms, I think it's really important to be armed with questions. Like, I curate questions beforehand. I'll give you a couple of them. Like, hey, what are you most excited about? Like, what, what's something, if it's holidays, it's like, oh, where do you live? Where's your family from? Like, what did you do for the holiday? Like, find a commonality, because once you find that commonality, all of a sudden you've connected and you realize, okay, that's just a person. Like, the faster you can find that. So go in armed with your favorite questions. Mine truly is like, oh, what are you most excited about right now? Because anyone can answer that. It's not necessarily what do you do for a living, but if it is something like, you might tell me that you're loving your business or your product, and then I can ask more about that. Then the follow-up question comes very easily. So like 2 to 3 very open-ended questions like that, and then the follow-ups will come easier too.
I love that. Do you hear that? So learn 3 questions that you can keep on hand, that you can ask other people and connect. That's so important. Now, so you're clearly a disciplined person. You even the story you were telling yourself that I finish things that I start. But has it ever come to a point where discipline turns into pushing yourself too far? So, okay, tell me about that.
I am the definition of, let me tell you how not to be the pendulum, because I've done it all. And I actually do think that is part of my journey. Like, okay, let me go to the extreme so I can come back to the middle and tell you, please don't go over here, and here's why. So I think that are, in the beginning when you don't have any routines or rituals, like they can feel very freeing in your life when you start to see what you can accomplish with them. And so all of a sudden they can get very addictive. And especially if you've only done it one way, like for me growing up and losing weight one way, not realizing that there's a whole world of how to keep weight off that's much more sustainable than like, I need to have a fitness competition to lose weight. And then when I'm not doing it, I'm going to gain that weight. And then I need to do another one. So it's like this roller coaster is really what I kind of learned, because I never learned what the in-between looked like. I never learned how to deal with the very, like, it's like a face-off with yourself. I feel like sometimes, when you're like, it feels like with discipline, and the opposite of when you're on the other side of it, you're so uncomfortable that you've either learned how to be extremely disciplined or you've learned how to binge eat. You've learned how to be extremely disciplined in your business, or you're scrolling, numbing out on your phone, or you're online shopping. It's like we're so uncomfortable with actually feeling why we're doing the two things. And so it's been like so much work around, can I sit in this discomfort and be like, what is this actually trying to tell me? Now that is the deeply challenging work. Is your routines can start to feel like, in the beginning they can feel very freeing, but if you're noticing that it's such rigidity that you're no longer enjoying your life, now they're a trap. Now they're a new way that you are avoiding what you thought you were escaping with the routine. Does that make sense?
No, I can. So it's like, okay, part of my routine is meditate, but okay, so what does that? So it could be like, okay, 5 minutes, but you're not really. The purpose of it,
right?
has
You're just checking it
you.
off on the box because you're like, oh God, now if I don't meditate, maybe that thing won't happen. And now it's become like a prison. Yes. Okay. So I was in this with fitness. I was in this with meditating. I was in this with personal development books. And what ended up happening is that I was really not enjoying my life. I had a lot of anxiety despite being a meditator, despite personal development, despite doing all these things. I'm like, no, I'm doing all of these things. But I was so caught in the rigidity of all of it that the only thing that broke me out was my husband was like, I want to go to Europe. And I was like, oh, hell no. Like, I'll go, but I don't want to go for as long as you want to go. He wanted to go for like a month or more. So to a routine person, going to Europe, being out of my sleep cycle, my business cycle, my food cycle, and my workout cycle. I don't know if you know about Europe, but they like a lot of bread, they like wine, and they don't really like gyms. And this is when I was like in my gym routine, and I was like, oh no, like we cannot travel, we can't be like these nomads going all around and eating and going with all of these people. Like that was my worst nightmare. Why was going to Europe and having the best time of your life my worst nightmare? So that was like the first thing that I was like, okay, this is crazy. Why do I feel like I'm going to completely lose myself in this particular, experience? So I end up going, and I will tell you that the first 15 days, I was like a bear. I was like probably so horrible to be around. I was like, I'm not sleeping. I can't find vegetables. I'm like, I feel fat, all of these different things. And it was like day 15, my husband got so frustrated with me, and I was so frustrated with myself that I'm like, you're a total brat. You're not enjoying this dream trip that people would give anything for. And I just like surrendered. I was like, okay, I'm going to go with these friends. I'm going to go enjoy. I'm actually going to just be like, whatever happens, happens. Like, okay, if you gain some weight, you gain some weight. Like, but are you going to literally take these next 15 days, make yourself miserable, the people that you're with, your husband, all of these things? And so I just literally like said some prayers. And I know this might sound crazy to some people who aren't routine, but it can be an addiction, you guys. And I let go. And long story short, that was what broke me to realize, number one, I went home and I lost weight. That blew my mind because I was so afraid. The routines, like I was so afraid of going back to being the heavy kid. I just thought that if I get out of my routine, I don't know how to not be in one. And I'll either be the chubby kid or I'm me in routine. That's it. There was no in between. And so it really freed me from the prison of like, wow, there are other ways. You can eat these other foods if you're moving your body and you're actually enjoying. Wow, you don't binge eat when you actually allow yourself to get into conversation, or you face the discomfort of, oh, I'm just really uncomfortable in new social situations. Maybe I could just sit here and let myself be uncomfortable and not stuff my face or, overdrink, or it was just a lot of, when I was talking about facing off, it's a lot of like facing off with yourself of what am I avoiding? And you guys, this does not happen overnight. This is years of figuring these little moments out. And it's hard to look at all at once. So it's kind of like looking at maybe the thing first that is like, it's like that question of what are you pretending not to know? Kind of looking there potentially and going, is there a way that maybe I could start easing up on this thing?
I think what I'm hearing, so there's definitely a difference between discipline and being rigid. I mean, although sometimes, people think of people who are disciplined as rigid, but it's not the same thing. And I think that's what it is. But I think also from what I'm hearing is the importance of constant self-evaluation and examination. And really just keep talking to yourself, checking in with yourself, and managing yourself. Or maybe not managing is the right word, but really being the CEO of your own life. So you evaluate, why am I feeling this way? Those questions are so important. And I think when people numb out on whether it be alcohol or social media, it's avoiding those type of questions, which you have continued. So even though you've had some challenges, you've got yourself out of it because you're constantly looking at yourself and evaluating yourself. And I think that's so remarkable.
Oh, well, thank you. And it's come from a lot of, number one, we were talking about personal development, like going to those things, but also building relationships with really great people who, when there's people around you that you are showing up for them and they're showing up for you. And it's almost like in my relationships now, we do have conversations like, hey, I want to be that friend for you who is there for you, not during just the highlights, because it's very easy as you start to experience, for everyone on here, as you start experiencing success, you'll attract other people who have success. And then all of a sudden, sometimes it feels like maybe you can't show the not great sides of yourself in certain relationships. And that can also be a way that we build a prison. And it's like, if you can keep those conversations open of like, hey, just so you know I met you when you have this great event going on and you're so stunning and I'm on your podcast and I love the fact that I've gotten to meet you, but I also want you to know that if you're not shiny or your life is not great, like I'm here for that conversation too. Yeah. Like if you're struggling and you're hurting in an area, like it's not going to be all together, and I know that. Yeah. So I think you have to say those things, or it's like those people are going to help you pull you back up when they recognize like, oh, maybe they're not okay. Or you're going to feel like you can do an SOS call. Like for me, I feel now like I have those people where before, in one of the stories I was telling you about, it's like during the fitness stuff, I was like, I don't even know who I'd text right now.
Yes.
I don't even know who I'd text,
I have to say though, Laura, you have a great husband.
He's really amazing.
Yes, you have a great, how long are you married?
20 years.
20 years. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. That's a Midwest kids.
Oh my gosh. Tell me, what responsibility surprised you the most as your influence grew? Because I know we're kind of shifting gears because you have a big social media presence. You have people who look up to you, people who listen to your advice. Do you feel that as your influence has grown, do you feel that has changed any of your responsibility towards your audience, towards your...
That's a great question. I feel like how I've wanted to show up has changed. I've wanted to be... You just want to be more authentic because meaning you want people... I want people to know what comes with the journey. Yes. Like, I feel like in the beginning, even of when I started fitness, it was such a different time. Like, 90s, early 2000s was like, no one was going to show their cards. It was like, oh, I'm on this fitness cover and I don't eat candy. Like, I remember they're like, what's your snack? And it was like broccoli. And I was like, bullshit. It's like, okay. Yes. And so it made me feel like I was never going to accomplish anything. And so I think my responsibility now feels like show the very human side. Like, but how do we show that without like word vomiting emotion all over everybody? So I'm learning that dance of like, how do we tell people, oh, this will break you and rebuild you and break you and rebuild you, but not put all of, maybe if I'm in a tough spot or pain or going through something. So it's learning that dance of like being really open, but also keeping sacred things in the moment to myself.
I totally love that whole idea because it from whatever, when you see those type of expressions on even social media, it really, it's not even encouraging.
No.
You know?
No, it's just
So
heavy. I'm like, oh God.
Yes, I know.
What do I do? And
Yes,
you can't help them. So
right.
it's like,
So it's almost presenting a problem in a solution-oriented fashion, you know, and so you can explain just what you're doing right now. I think you're going to help a lot of people to recognize that your journey here has been followed with just normal things. You're a normal woman who just has a lot of discipline, who has a lot of ambition, who has a lot of drive. And for anyone who does, it comes with challenges, but you're helping people. If people, younger people or people who are just starting this journey, listen to this, it can avoid some of those pitfalls by spending time with, developing relationships along the way. You know, the things that you just mentioned, not being so rigid with yourself, recognizing that your way is not the only way. There are other ways, and being open to that. I think those are all such valuable points. I want to ask this, before I ask our final question, I want to ask you, is there anything that that is coming up that you want to share with your audience? Are you doing anything that you want us to help get involved, that we can look forward to, that you're planning in the very near future? Any new products, anything that you want to mention here?
oh my gosh, well, you're so amazing. Well, what I'm doing, what I'm most excited about.
What are you most excited?
Yeah,
I have to use that. What are you most excited about, Lori?
I love it. I am loving this new journey of a physical product. So
Yeah.
it has been soul wrenching and soul like just exposing, but also just so much growth. And I know for certain people, like different businesses are easier for others, but this has really been like like all of the things I've learned coming together to go, okay, here you have this thing that you're obsessed with. How do we make sure this gets into the hands of people? And so that is Glossy. It's a daily daily beauty supplement.
Can't wait to try it.
I hope that you love it. I brought you some. I
thank
was like,
you
if
so
you
much.
love it or give it away. But it's just a stick you pour into water. And it really is, because it started from my fitness journey of when I got my very first cover. I got an email from the magazine that said, because they give you a prep email, and it said, okay, you know, make sure that you're wearing this, you tan in this way, you prep your skin in this way, and make sure that you are eating for your skin, because we don't want to have to airbrush, and we want to make sure that your makeup goes on well. And I was like, what does eating for my skin mean? You guys, this was like 15 years ago. And so that was my first moment of, and I would watch as my skin would change, because as you go down on those competition diets or photo shoot diets, you're dehydrating. You're pulling fats. You're pulling all of these skin nutrients that make you look amazing. You didn't even know it. And so what they were saying is like, we know you're about to go do this diet, but make sure that you're somehow keeping these in or supplementing or doing this, because this is going to make your skin look amazing. And so I was like, oh, we have to eat for our skin. It's our biggest organ. So that's where that all started, is how can I make sure that not only are we hydrating, because why are we just drinking hydration sticks? I say like, okay, if you're a high achieving woman, you should drink high achieving water. And so put it in your water and drink it. So that's where that came from.
Awesome. Well, you certainly embody your products, which is a great thing. So I think that always helps when a product fits with who you are.
Yeah, that's so true. Otherwise, it's very challenging to put out in the world if you feel like you can't talk about it every day.
Yes, if you can't represent it, and So, final question. For women who want more influence, what needs to be steady first?
Oh, women who want more influence. I think your capacity, I would say another big one is, I'm telling you, when you have a solid network of people in your life, like when you have a couple really great friends, I believe that they're your safety net. Like, I don't believe in a plan B, but I believe in a safety net that are human beings, because I feel like your risk tolerance heightens the more you know that people have your back.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to go out in the world and say how I feel, and like truly let that be something that I can stand on, where if I had shaky ground and I was like, I don't know if they're going to like me if I say this. I don't know if my family's going to accept me. I'm not sure on this, which happens, right? But I think you also need to like have some people who you're going to be able to go be free, go be yourself, in order to go and truly be like, have that point of view out in the world that you need to have in order to gain more exposure.
Okay, so network sounds like a theme that has run
It
throughout our
really is.
conversation. And if you want to have more influence, you're going to need to have a network of people to support you.
I mean, I've seen some people do it alone, but it's been harder. It's taken longer. They're not really happy.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've interviewed a lot of people, and I'm like, you don't sound happy though.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh, Lori, thank you so much. You are truly just a phenomenal woman, and I'm so grateful that you came here today. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're such a good interviewer. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for having me. I feel honored.
Oh, awesome. Where can people find you?
They can go to loriharder.com, or they can go Lori Harder on anything. Otherwise, the product is also getglossy.com.
Okay, well, there you have it. Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CO2 Lift. As we age, our skin loses moisture and elasticity, causing wrinkled skin. You can reverse this aging process with CO2 Lift. CO2 Lift utilizes the powerful benefits of carbon dioxide to lift, tighten, and regenerate your skin. This simple, painless at-home carboxytherapy treatment is scientifically proven to reverse the aging process. You will see reduction in wrinkles, increase in luminosity, and improve pigmentation, sagging, skin tone, and radiance.
For more information or to order CO2 Lift, ask your skincare professional or go to co2lift.com.
Well, that's a wrap, beautiful tri-state area and beyond. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Do remember to join me right here on A Moment of Zen every Saturday, or you could head directly to amomentofzen.com for live listening links and episode downloads in your city. And also remember that we're live on Traverse TV Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern, YouTube Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern, and of course, all episodes of A Moment of Zen are available on your home TV streaming platform. You can head directly to our channel. It's family-friendly, free programming to you, no app downloaded required. You could head to mox.yourhometv.com. Thank you for listening to us. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our sponsors, partners, and advertisers that continue to make this show possible. And remember that happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it. We'll be back next week.